Friday, November 22nd, 1963. It's 12:30 p.m. in Dallas, Texas. The sun is shining, the mood is festive. A presidential motorcade moves through a cheering crowd as the young President John F. Kennedy rides in a Lincoln Continental convertible accompanied by his wife, Jackie. Everything seems perfect until suddenly loud cracks ring out. Some think they're firecrackers. Others believe it's a motorcycle backfiring. But no, they're gunshots. In seconds, the scene turns into a nightmare. The president has been wounded. Jackie, in shock, tries with her own hands to contain the impossible. Chaos erupts, and with it, the beginning of a mystery that, even today, more than 60 years later, remains unsolved. President John F. Kennedy is rushed to Parkland Hospital. Doctors fight to save him, but it's in vain. Half an hour after the shooting, his death is officially declared. Meanwhile, police begin searching for the culprit. In less than 90 minutes, they arrest a suspect, Lee Harvey Oswald, a 24-year-old former Marine who identifies as a communist and political fanatic. When questioned, Oswald denies everything and utters a phrase that will go down in history. "I'm just a patsy." But he won't have the chance to say much more. Just 47 hours later, while being transferred in the basement of the police station, a man named Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner, approaches and shoots him point blank. Oswald dies in the same hospital where Kennedy was treated, and with him, a part of the truth dies too. Despite how suspicious the case looks, the government rushes to close the story. The Warren Commission declares that Oswald acted completely alone. But then comes the question that divides generations. Was all of this really the work of a single man? Or was something bigger behind it? Today, we're going to unearth the most powerful theories, the recently declassified documents, and the errors that might prove that what we thought we knew about the murder of JFK could be a big lie.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
When Kennedy took office in January 1961, he inherited a nation in the middle of the Cold War. The nuclear threat with the Soviet Union was real, but that wasn't the only thing the new president had to worry about. Within his own government, there were extremely powerful factions operating with total freedom. The CIA, the Pentagon, and a complex web of interests that former President Eisenhower had warned about in his farewell address. He called it the military-industrial complex and described it as a force with disproportionate power that endangered democracy. Why? Because behind patriotic speeches were multi-billion-dollar contracts, private companies profiting from war, politicians gaining power, military leaders receiving bigger budgets and technology, and intelligence agencies operating without oversight. From the start, Kennedy stood up to all of them. Under the cover of national interest, the CIA funded secret wars, organized coups, overthrew foreign governments, and carried out political assassinations without consulting Congress or the president. And this isn't a conspiracy theory, it's documented and declassified. Among its darkest operations were the coup in Guatemala, 1954, the intervention in Iran, 1953, support for Pinochet's coup in Chile, 1973, and the infamous MK-Ultra program, mind control through drugs and torture. The problem was that Kennedy dared to oppose that system. Instead of fueling tension with the USSR, he promoted dialogue. Instead of increasing military spending, he sought to reduce it. Instead of invading enemy countries, he wanted to withdraw troops. And that did not sit well with Washington's power brokers, because when a president says he wants to demilitarize the world, those who get rich from war see their business at risk. The deeper I go into this story, the more I realize that Kennedy wasn't killed only by his external enemies. He was killed by the enemies within the very system he swore to protect.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
Barely 3 months after taking office, Kennedy faced his first major test, the Bay of Pigs invasion. The plan had been prepared under Eisenhower and consisted of invading Cuba using Cuban exiles trained by the CIA. Kennedy, pressured by his advisors, gave the green light to the operation, but the result was a total disaster. Fidel Castro's forces easily repelled the invasion. Hundreds of exiles were captured, and the United States was humiliated before the world. Kennedy refused to send air support, which sparked fury within the CIA and among anti-Castro groups. Kennedy publicly took responsibility, but privately he was furious. He fired CIA Director Allen Dulles and other top officials, and he delivered one of the most scathing lines ever directed at an intelligence agency. "I'm going to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds." Strong, dangerous words, ones not easily forgotten inside an organization used to operating in the shadows. Kennedy had committed his first sin, exposing and defying hidden power. A year later, in 1962, General Lyman Lemnitzer presented Defense Secretary Robert McNamara with a chilling plan called Operation Northwoods. The objective: justify an invasion of Cuba by staging false attacks against U.S. targets. The method: simulate attacks on military bases, orchestrate airplane accidents, carry out attacks with fake casualties, blame Cuba, and use actors dressed as Cuban soldiers to capture the supposed culprits, all to manipulate public opinion and create the perfect excuse for war. When Kennedy read the plan, he rejected it indignantly. Once again, he did what no previous president had dared to do: deny the Pentagon's hawks their war, and that, once again, put him on the blacklist of those who make war their business.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
October 1962, the world stood one step away from total destruction. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the United States and the Soviet Union to the brink of nuclear war. The CIA and the military wanted to strike immediately. Air Force Chief General Curtis LeMay said, "We hit them now and end this." But Kennedy flatly refused. He knew a war like that would be the end of the planet. Instead of listening to his generals, Kennedy negotiated directly with Khrushchev. The agreement was secret but effective. The USSR would remove its missiles from Cuba, and the US would remove its missiles from Turkey. What should have been a diplomatic triumph was seen as a betrayal by the most hardline sectors of government. Because Kennedy proved he didn't want war, he wanted peace. In his speech at American University, he delivered words that still resonate today as a challenge to the system. "We do not seek a peace enforced on the world by American weapons of war. We seek genuine peace. Peace for all men and all nations. Peace not merely in our time, but in all time. No one who profits from war is interested in that kind of message, least of all when it comes from the commander-in-chief of the most powerful military on earth. In private, Kennedy told a close friend, "If we listen to these military men, none of us will be alive to tell them they were wrong." That sentence is almost a premonition, because weeks later, Kennedy would sign an order to withdraw troops from Vietnam, and a month after that, he would be assassinated in Dallas. In the next part, we're going to dive into that point: Vietnam, the military drawdown, and why his decision may have been the final death sentence.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
In 1963, Vietnam was already a powder keg. The United States had been involved for 8 years in a senseless war, losing money, troops, and international support. Kennedy knew it, and he also knew that if they stayed on that path, disaster would be inevitable. That's why, a month before his death, he signed an order to withdraw 1,000 soldiers from Vietnam, but that was only the first step. His real plan was a complete withdrawal, but he couldn't do it yet. His words confirm it. "I can't withdraw all the troops now. I have to wait until after my re-election in 1965. They're going to call me a traitor. They're going to accuse me of being a communist, but I don't care." Kennedy knew the political price of opposing the military-industrial complex, but what he probably didn't know was that this decision could cost him his life, because just a week after signing that order, the country was preparing to welcome him to Dallas, and there his story ended.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
In the official narrative, Oswald was simply an unstable young man, communist, obsessed with politics, and with delusions of grandeur. But the reality is much more complex and much more unsettling. Oswald was born in New Orleans in 1939. He enlisted in the Marines at 17 and worked as a radar operator. His base was in Japan, specifically at Tsugi, a key site for CIA operations, where reconnaissance flights of the famous U-2 spy plane were monitored. That means Oswald had access to classified information. He wasn't just a simple soldier. In 1959, Oswald traveled to Moscow and publicly renounced his U.S. citizenship. He handed a letter to the American consul saying, "My allegiance is now to the Soviet Union." And most surprising of all, the Soviets accepted him. They housed him, gave him a job at a factory in Minsk, and even let him marry a Russian citizen, Marina Prusakova. But Oswald didn't adapt. The supposed communist paradise wasn't what he imagined, and in 1962, he decided to return to the United States. Here, something completely out of the ordinary happened. The embassy granted him a new U.S. passport in just 24 hours. He got a government loan to come back. And upon arrival, no one interrogated him, no one detained him, no one investigated him. How was it possible that a defector with classified military knowledge returned as if nothing had happened? Why did the U.S. government welcome a man who had publicly betrayed them with open arms? Former CIA officer Victor Marchetti revealed there was a secret operation to send young Americans to the USSR pretending to be defectors, with the goal of infiltrating as spies. According to this theory, Oswald was one of those agents. He pretended to be a communist, was accepted by the Soviets, gathered information, and then returned. There are even witnesses who claim Oswald actually hated communism. A former Marine buddy, James Botelho, stated, "Oswald's communism was a front. He was working for American intelligence. I knew it from day one." One of the key men in this story is George de Mohrenschildt, a mysterious businessman with contacts in the CIA and in government. He was a close friend of Oswald, got him a job in Dallas, and according to his family, acted as his babysitter, assigned by intelligence. In 1977, George was found dead a day after giving an interview about his relationship with Oswald. Supposedly, he shot himself with a shotgun. Among his belongings, they found a photograph of Oswald with a dedication, "To my friend George," from Lee. All of this leads us to wonder, was Oswald a lone assassin or a pawn used by a much larger network?
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
Thursday, November 21st, 1963. Oswald asks his co-worker, Wesley Frazier, to drive him to his wife's home in Irving, Texas. Strange, since he usually only visited his family on weekends. That night, according to his wife, Marina, Oswald went to retrieve his rifle, which he had hidden in the garage of a friend named Ruth Payne. November 22nd, 7:15 a.m. Oswald travels back to Dallas carrying a long package wrapped in brown paper. When asked what he's carrying, he replies, "They're curtain rods." That day, he works as usual at the Texas School Book Depository, where he'd been hired just 5 weeks earlier. Around 11:45 a.m., several employees see him on the first floor. Then he disappears. It's believed that between 12:15 and 12:30 p.m., Oswald goes up to the 6th floor. There, he rearranges boxes to create an improvised sniper's nest with a perfect view of the motorcade route. At 12:29 p.m., the presidential limousine turns onto Elm Street. And at exactly 12:30 p.m., the first shot rings out. According to the official version, the first shot misses, likely deflected by a branch. The second passes through Kennedy's neck and wounds Governor Connally. The third, 8.4 seconds after the first, delivers the fatal headshot to the president. Jackie Kennedy, in shock, tries to help her husband, not understanding what has just happened. Barely 90 seconds after the shots, Officer Marion Baker finds Oswald on the 2nd floor, calmly drinking a Coca-Cola. The building manager identifies him as an employee, and the officer continues searching other floors. At 12:33 p.m., Oswald leaves the building on foot. How is it possible that he fired 3 times, hit the rifle, went down 4 floors, and was calmly sipping a soda, all in under 90 seconds? Reenactments say it's possible, but just barely. Other versions suggest someone else fired and Oswald was framed.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
After Kennedy's assassination, Oswald was detained in less than 90 minutes. First, he was accused of killing a police officer named J.D. Tippit, and later of being the president's assassin. But Oswald never confessed. He insisted again and again that he was innocent, and left an enigmatic line that still echoes today. "I'm just a patsy." The entire nation expected to see him on trial, to hear him speak, to see him defend himself. But that never happened, because less than 48 hours later, while being led through the basement of the Dallas police headquarters, Lee Harvey Oswald was murdered live in front of cameras, police, and dozens of journalists. The man responsible was Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner with known ties to the police and to the mob. He said he did it out of patriotic grief to spare Jackie Kennedy the pain of a trial, but few truly believed him. Ruby was well known in Dallas. He had shady business dealings. He rubbed shoulders with law enforcement. And according to some journalists, he even trafficked weapons for the CIA to rebels in Cuba. What was this man doing in the police basement at the exact moment Oswald was to be transferred? Within days, Jack Ruby was diagnosed with severe psychosis. His behavior became erratic. He didn't speak coherently. The doctor who signed his diagnosis was Louis Jolyon West, known for having worked on the CIA's MK-Ultra program. West experimented with hypnosis, LSD, and mind control. Coincidence? Or did someone make sure Ruby would never be able to say anything? In prison, Ruby dropped several chilling lines. "There are people in high places who don't want me to talk. The world will never know the true story." He was sentenced to death, but died before his second trial from a pulmonary embolism stemming from cancer. Like Oswald, he took the secrets with him.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
Under public pressure, the new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, created the Warren Commission, chaired by Chief Justice Earl Warren. Its goal was to investigate Kennedy's assassination and provide a clear version to calm the country. But from the very start, something was off. Among the commission's members was Allen Dulles, the former CIA director, the same man Kennedy had fired after the Bay of Pigs fiasco. Now he was supposed to investigate the death of his political enemy. Conflict of interest? Without a doubt. But that didn't stop the government. After 10 months of investigation, the official report concluded Oswald acted alone. There was no domestic or foreign conspiracy. All shots came from the 6th floor. Exactly 3 shots were fired, but one explanation became both famous and ridiculed, the so-called magic bullet theory. According to the report, a single bullet entered Kennedy's back, exited through his throat, entered Governor Connolly's back, who was seated in front, exited through his chest, shattered his right wrist, and ended up lodged in his left thigh. All of that with a single projectile. And when that bullet was found, it was practically intact. Many ballistics experts considered it a farce. Even members of the commission itself, like Senator Richard Russell, said they didn't believe that trajectory. Governor Connolly himself, wounded by that bullet, also disagreed. "I do not believe that one bullet caused all of my wounds, and I do not believe it was a single one."
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
One of the most chilling aspects of the Kennedy case is the number of witnesses who died under suspicious circumstances. We're not talking about 1 or 2. There are dozens. Dorothy Kilgallen, a journalist who investigated Jack Ruby's connections to the CIA. She was found dead at home from an alleged mix of alcohol and pills. In her last TV appearance, she said, "I'm about to reveal something that will shake America." She never got to publish her story. William Pitzer, head of audiovisual services at the Naval Hospital, who filmed Kennedy's autopsy. He asserted the shot came from the front. Days before retirement, he was found dead with a gunshot to the head. His family insists he wasn't depressed and had no reason to kill himself. Rose Cherami, a former employee of Jack Ruby. She said she had overheard two men planning the assassination days earlier. She was found dead on a Texas highway, struck in strange circumstances. Roger Craig, a deputy sheriff who said he saw Oswald get into a different car, not the bus or taxi the official version claims. He was fired, discredited, and later found dead from a gunshot. Officially suicide, but many don't believe it. Coincidences? Silencings? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. Someone didn't want certain voices to be heard.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
By this point, the official version convinces almost no one, and that's why dozens of theories have emerged about who was really behind Kennedy's assassination. Some sound logical, others feel like they're straight out of a movie. But they all have one thing in common. They're full of facts, testimonies, and coincidences that can't be ignored. The Attorney General at the time was Robert Kennedy, the president's brother, and he had declared an all-out war on organized crime. The mob, which supposedly helped the Kennedys win the 1960 election, felt betrayed. Jack Ruby, the man who killed Oswald, had mob connections, and there are even recordings of mobsters like Carlos Marcello and Santo Traficante Jr. saying things like, "If you cut off the head of the dog, the body dies, and if the head was JFK, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson himself had personal and political motives to get rid of Kennedy. He was on the verge of a corruption scandal, and there were rumors he would be replaced as the vice presidential candidate in the 1964 election." His mistress, Madeleine Brown, claimed Johnson told her the night before the assassination, "After tomorrow, those goddamn Kennedys will never embarrass me again." Kennedy wanted to get out of Vietnam, slow the arms race, reduce the CIA's power. All of that put hundreds of billions of dollars at risk. The big defense contractors, the Pentagon, intelligence, all of them lost if Kennedy had stayed alive. Was he killed for trying to dismantle the system that controls war? Many witnesses claimed the shots didn't come only from the building, but also from the front, from the famous grassy knoll. The president's autopsy was inconsistent, and Kennedy's brain mysteriously disappeared after analysis. Why so much opacity? In the middle of the Texas heat, a man with a black umbrella was seen at the exact moment of the shot, right next to the president. He stood still, not reacting to the gunfire. Some believe it was a signal to shoot. Others go further and claim the umbrella was a concealed weapon.
Noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted...
In 1992, the JFK Assassination Records Act was passed, requiring all related documents to be declassified by October 2017. But the CIA and FBI refused. In 2025, after years of pressure, more than 80,000 documents were finally released. What did they reveal? That the CIA knew about Lee Harvey Oswald long before the assassination. That they were tracking him for his connections with the USSR and Cuba. That there were at least 6 prior attempts to kill JFK. And that security protocols were not followed on the Dallas route that day. In short, they knew Oswald was a risk and did nothing, through incompetence or by design. Perhaps the most tragic part of this story isn't just the death of a president, but the death of a vision. Kennedy wanted a country that led through peace, not war, that sought dialogue before conflict, and that stood up to the dark powers that operate without accountability. The day Kennedy was killed, they didn't just assassinate a man. They also assassinated the hope that such change was possible. The JFK case is so complex, so deep, and so layered that a single video isn't enough. At Enigmaze, we keep unearthing secrets, hidden documents, and theories that challenge the official story. If you liked this video and want to keep investigating the darkest mysteries of power, subscribe to Enigmaze and turn on the bell.